The Ukraine call memo is out, and it puts Donald Trump on the record asking a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent's family. To many Democrats, it's a smoking gun.
The notes of the call reflect a conversation far more damning than I or many others had imagined.
But for Republicans, it's much ado about not much.
If this is going to result in impeachment of a president, God help future presidents. From a quid pro quo aspect of the phone call, there's nothing there.
And while Graham is right that there was no explicit quid pro quo, the call came within days of Trump withholding nearly $400 million in aid to Ukraine. And according to what the White House is calling a memorandum of telephone conversation, Trump specifically noted that the United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. Then when President Zelensky started to discuss getting more support from the U.S. in the area of defense, Trump responded by saying, "I would like you to do us a favor," and proceeded to ask the Ukrainians to investigate two issues. The first was related to a debunked theory about Ukraine having possession of a DNC email server, and the other was focused squarely on presidential candidate Joe Biden. According to the memo, Trump said, "There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great." He went on to ask Ukraine's president to work with Attorney General William Barr and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who the Washington Post has reported went around U.S. government officials in his dealings with Ukraine, a claim Giuliani vehemently denied on Fox News last night.
You know who I did it at the request of? The State Department. I never talked to a Ukrainian official until the State Department called me and asked me to do it. And then I reported every conversation back to them.
You know, I honestly don't know which would be worse, Giuliani conducting shadow foreign policy or the State Department enlisting the president's TV lawyer to act on their behalf. Of course, if you ask the president, every bit of this has been above board.
There was no pressure. The way you had that built up, that call, it was going to be the call from hell. It turned out to be a nothing call.
And as for the impeachment inquiry, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi greenlit yesterday.
It's the single greatest witch hunt in American history, probably in history, but in American history.
Sounds familiar. Joining me to discuss the twists and turns of this one are my radio co-host and constitutional scholar, Margery Eagan.
That's
it's
right.
Good to see you, Margery. Thanks for being here. Former state treasurer, Republican turned independent, and Trump supporter Joe Malone. Joe, good to see you as well. So virtually every congressional Republican I saw on TV or read about today said, move on, there's nothing to see here. Is there nothing to see here?
There's nothing to see here. And the selectivity of it is what is really outrageous.
What does that mean?
When you have Joe Biden basically saying to the Ukrainian government, do what I tell you to do or else you're not getting funding, that's a quid pro quo. Where do I get a $50,000 a year board seat, $50,000 a month board seat in the Ukraine if I'm not the vice president
Can I
of the
be
United
clear?
States?
I just want to be clear. So the United States president soliciting damaging information on a political rival from a foreign leader, that's nothing. That's perfectly fine.
If corruption is running rampant in the Ukraine, and Trump says, you need to clean up your house. And, oh, by the way, you got a vice president over there telling you to fire a prosecutor, and his son is making $50,000 a month, by the way, that doesn't get paid directly from the oligarch
Which
to the
was
son.
probed and, by the way, nothing found to be
The
improper.
New York Times
you know
said, number one,
okay,
does it pass the smell test? That's the question.
But your answer to my
is no.
question, which you haven't answered, is it's perfectly fine, yes?
Based on what has been exposed.
Is it
yeah.
perfectly fine?
It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, we just heard the press conference from the president this afternoon where he's saying that Nancy Pelosi has been taken over by a gang of left-wing socialists or something. The 7 people who had an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday, the freshman members of Congress from moderate districts, moderate Democrats who have put their re-election on the line because they are from districts, some of them which were very favorable to Trump. It's led by Mickey Sherrill. She's the congresswoman from New Jersey. I guess in Trump's estimation, she's a radical leftist lunatic. She's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. She was a helicopter pilot, one of the first class of women to go into combat, flew helicopters all over the place. She was a federal prosecutor. She was a Russian policy expert. At the risk of her own career, she and 600 congresspeople said, what the president has done, which is use taxpayer money to shaft his political opponent secretly, is so opposite to the Constitution of the United States, puts our security at such a risk that she said enough is enough.
But you agree that there is no explicit quid pro quo in this transcript. We don't have the whistleblower report yet. But there is no.
We don't want to take Michael Cohen at his word, because he's had a lot of problems with lying. But he said something brilliant about the president. The president is like a mob boss. He doesn't say quid pro quo. He talks in code. He talks in words. I read the transcript. It is clear to me what the President of the United States was saying to this young guy who's just been elected. We've been very, very, very good to you, and you need to take care of this Biden situation.
Here's the young guy
there was
himself.
Absolutely an implied quid pro quo.
He met with the President of the United States today. This is Zelensky, the new president, relatively new president of Ukraine. Here's what he had to say about the phone call controversy.
We had, I think, good phone call. It was normal. We spoke about many things, and I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me. Yes.
In other words, no pressure.
Nobody pushed me, he said. Nobody pushed me, he said.
The guy needs money to fight off the Russians. I mean, it's always the Russians. By the way, basically, we just spent 2 years on the witch hunt, according to the president, the Mueller report, which 10 counts of obstruction of justice, et cetera, about the Russians soliciting the Trump campaign, right? The day after, as we know, Mueller testifies, Trump gets on the phone with this guy and does the same thing, but it's worse because it's Trump, it's the Americans going after the Ukraine.
And he's a sitting president.
And he's a sitting president. So it's like he can get away with anything.
Can I change this dynamic here for a second? I want you to raise your right hand. You don't even have to. I assume it. Hi, I'm Barack Obama. Hey, President Zelensky, I'd like you to do me a favor. I'd like you to investigate the business dealings of Mitt Romney's sons. And please talk to my Attorney General about it, Eric Holder. I'd really appreciate it, and my personal lawyer as well, and get back to me. And if that had happened a bunch of years ago, you'd say, nothing there, move on?
So I think, and Trump just said this, you had the whole intelligence world going after Trump from day one of him being sworn in with the so-called insurance policy, and that was planted, that seed, back in the Obama administration. He's never been asked a question about that.
If Obama called a foreign leader and said, investigate the children's business dealings of my political opponent, would you say it was A-OK?
He used the deep state to go after his political opponent. He didn't use a foreign country, but he used the deep state. And on the other hand, they let Ms. Clinton get totally off the hook on all of those things.
Well, they're now going to find her server in Ukraine, so everything will be fine.
But Jim, just let me add.
Yeah.
And that is, the selective outrage of the media is really what stinks about this whole thing. They are after Trump. It's a zero-sum game here. Either they win the media or Trump wins.
Nancy Pelosi's not in the media. She's been against impeachment until yesterday.
The Democratic Party and the media are now wearing the same uniforms.
Are you about to have a stroke?
You know, someday, Joe, when this is all over, you and I are going to go out and have a nice scotch, and you're going to tell me why you've adopted this insane stand about a guy who lies every time he opens his mouth, and you know it. I've known you for a long time. You have to know it. I don't get.
Wait, he's not lying here, Margery. He is acknowledged.
What are you talking about?
No, forget. I'm not. He is acknowledging that he reached out to the president of Ukraine and asked him.
He's admitted it, and Rudy Giuliani's admitted it, and Barr apparently has got the entire Justice Department, the Attorney General, doing his bidding.
This guy, number one, availed himself, Trump, availed himself to the media today, not once, but twice. Took their questions.
And
he's not hiding from me.
Like he's lost his marbles.
Do you think
he's
so?
going on about electoral college votes and Hillary Clinton and how I won the election. He sounds like he's really.
Honestly, if anybody looks like it, it's the Speaker of the House, Pelosi. I mean, she looks like she's really on the edge.
Well, at least she's making sense. You may not like her delivery, but at least you understand what she's saying.
We've gone from the Russian investigation where there was no grounds for
10 counts of obstruction. The only reason he didn't get indicted because you can't indict a sitting president.
So now we go to Kavanaugh, and that was a fiasco. The New York Times.
What? He could have solved this whole problem, Joe, if he didn't pick up the phone the day after the Mueller investigation and call Ukraine.
So how many presidents in our lifetime have done stuff in the swamp down in Washington? Says, oh, he's one of the boys. Every move Trump makes, impeach him for that.
Well, last 15 seconds.
You know, it's not just that. It's everything else. It's the 20 women, the sexual assault. It's the climate change denial. It's the tax breaks to the wealthy people, screwing the middle class. He's like a big disaster.
You're going to have to finish us over that scotch. Joe
Sounds
Malone,
good.
it's good to see you.
Likewise. I love a
Margery
martini.
Eagan, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 11
Thank you,
o'clock.
Marge.
Watch her show. It's great.